A pleasant good morning, everybody, or everyone, as my English teacher would say. Body da Bogue. If nobody knows where Bogue is, it's in Montego Bay. It's an old cemetery, probably the oldest cemetery in Montego Bay. So she used to say, don't say body, everybody say everyone, because body da Bogue. Alright, so thank you again for taking the time. My mission today is to pretty much condense some stuff and provide evidence as usual, because again I want the police and fraud squad and the integrity commission to have zero resistance to the matter in front of them, or to come up with any excuse that there isn't evidence or information sufficient for them to act. So just going through that, and then hopefully I'll get to make a commentary on the general events that's been happening over the weekend, because I heard a lot of content makers and bloggers, in fact, regarding the whole scenario with Mr. The Prime Minister and that kind of thing, and some commentary there. Hopefully I'll get to do it. If not, I'll do it later. But just wanted to kind of itemize some of the fraudulent action, why it was done, and so we could move on. And then hopefully I'm going to be able to do a video in the future where I describe the international players in terms of the fraudsters who conspired to defraud us of property, and so that you have a clearer picture of the whole scenario, and that, as we say, it's conspiracy. And why we want to emphasize the whole conspiracy thing is that because it went in front of a judge, and the judge said it wasn't conspiracy and claimed I didn't file anything, so she couldn't make a decision in my favor. And as I indicated before in a previous video, if a judge feels I didn't file anything and there was evidence that I did, including where the other side, the litigants or the defendants on the other side, said yeah I did, then the just thing to do and the intelligent thing to have done was say, let me put this hearing on hold and let them find those papers and review them before I make a decision. I know she made a decision and then of course rule against me, which I said is prejudicial, and it can't be just because I am a litigant in the matter. It's because I'm a litigant that has been putting out information about this corruption that's in the court. So if she wants to cooperate with it, that's on her. And the other thing she said in that ruling, which I won't go into the details and I won't even address it overall, but because it will come up in the investigation, is that I was making a collateral attack on the ruling and the order from the US, even though in the same judgment she gave, she was saying, oh well, I was right, the court order from a US can't be enforced in the Jamaica jurisdiction. And of course there was also the ruling by previous judges, Justice G. Brown, who had also told the court, and therefore she couldn't overrule it because she was a Supreme Court judge, so she couldn't overrule the ruling of Justice G. Brown. But she ignored all of that, and plus what I'm going to be saying, reading to you now, and made a decision that this wasn't a conspiracy. So actually this was one of the documents I filed in the proceedings that was in front of her. Because what I did, I listed the fraud that was going on and pretty much itemized it. And so I don't know how she could have missed all of this, or she made any decision adverse to us, but she did. And of course that can't stop us from enforcing our right or the orders we got before, but it delays the process. And as I said to you before, I keep saying we because I'm talking on behalf of my partners as well, because we have projects to do. We want to move forward as fast as possible, and we also want to collect our damages as quickly as possible. We've been waiting since 2012, when they took out an injunction, and it's been damaging us since. And in fact, they took out 3 injunctions on 3 separate claims, and those claims and the damages are tremendously large. I mean, beyond reasonable when it comes to somebody or the court allowing injunctions against people and their property. So I listed the fraud by Alexis Robinson, which is also filed in the court's records and possibly in front of all the judges. So I'm going to quickly go through that and read it off. And it says undisputed facts. Fraud by Alexis Robinson. And Alexis Robinson, conspirator of the interference that was and is her role in this conspiracy. So Alexis Robinson and Myers, Fletcher and God knew that Judge G. Brown had ruled and made orders on May 16, 2018 that Anthony Tharpe was recognized by the Jamaica Supreme Court as a legal representative of BVNS, which is Business Ventures and Solutions Inc., abbreviated, after John Graham, representing Capital One and the Alexander Burnham Trust, alleged that Anthony Tharpe could not represent BVNS, Business Ventures and Solutions Inc., because of a U.S. court order. So she knew all of this, which means she went against it and submitted fraudulent documents contradicting it and making statements that we employed her or retained her. Again, fraud. So this is a whole bunch of fraud. Everything that's done is fraudulent. I won't pretty much go into the details of every aspect. I've condensed it so we could get out of here quickly, hopefully. Alexis Robinson knew that this is number 2. Alexis Robinson knew that no orders overturning that appointment of Anthony Tharpe was granted by any court in Jamaica, which Alexis Robinson, being an attorney, must have known must take place before any opposition to Anthony Tharpe being the legal representative could be undone. Justice G. Brown ruled that no U.S. court order making such a declaration could be enforced in Jamaica. That was number 3. Number 4, Justice G. Brown also ruled that because of the Limitations Act found in the Jamaica Constitution, Anthony Tharpe's property rights in the property could not be infringed upon, since Anthony Tharpe was in possession of the property from 2005. That's over 13 years when this was done at the time. 5, Alexis Robinson knew that Anthony Tharpe had permits to develop the subject property of her claim. I should show you the permit right now. This way I don't have to go back over. Okay, that's a permit from NEPA. And so Alexis Robinson knew that we had permits from NEPA to develop the property, and so did John Graham, so did the court, because everything was filed in the court. And I'll just read this, because I've been saying that they can't just take property because of the Constitution, and that's what Justice G. Brown was also ruling when he made the orders. And it goes on, under the Jamaica Constitution, the rights to the property as guaranteed under Chapter 3, Section 15 of the Constitution is established. The Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms of the Jamaica Constitutions provide as follows. No property of any description shall be compulsorily taken possession of, and no interest in or right over the property of any description shall be compulsorily acquired except by or under the provision of the law. And it prescribes a principle on which the manner in which compensation therefore is to be determined and given, and secures to any person claiming an interest in or right over such property a right of access to a court for the purpose of establishing such interest or right, determining the compensation, if any, to which he is entitled, and enforcing the approvals of the government of Jamaica to right to any such compensation. Alright, so in short, this section of the Constitution is in support of what Justice G. Brown ruled, that no U.S. court order could take possession of any property from Anthony. And it says any property. So any property would include the real estate and the damages. Take any property. And I mentioned that because, remember, they had gone and gotten this court order claiming they own Business Ventures and Solutions Inc., which is also a property. and therefore now they're trying to usurp the right to our damages. And when Alexis Robinson went and filed a withdrawal notice on damages, which is also property, she violated the Constitution. So she not only committed fraud on the Law Reform Fraudulent Transaction Act, but she committed constitutional fraud and constitutional violation of a constitutional right, and all of that stuff. So again, more evidence to show that the fraud squad and the Integrity Commission cannot at any point during any investigation of these matters claim they don't have evidence or it's not supported in fact and law. And I emphasize this. Under the Constitution stands. If the court made a ruling that contradicts the Constitution, that rule has no standing. If the Parliament makes a rule or a law that violates the Constitution is superior, and they can't overturn the Constitution. And the only way to make a change in the Constitution is for a referendum where a two-thirds majority of the people, the voting population of Jamaica, makes a decision to make that change. And I'm going to say this because I know I've seen quite a few actions in Parliament where they make changes to the Constitution. Now, Jamaica has a written Constitution, and it means all the tenets of the Constitution are entrenched. Meaning, you can't just make a rule in Parliament and change the Constitution, though I've seen them doing it. And I'm surprised that all these lawyers that we have in Parliament sit there and make it, but they because we don't know, our citizens aren't aware of their constitutional rights or the Constitution or their civics, which they should be studying, and was pulled out of school for this specific purpose so they could con the Jamaican people. No government can just go in and make a change to the Constitution. That's just fact. It's a written Constitution, but the Jamaica government on both sides that have been in there have been doing it, including taking action which violate the Constitution. For example, I remember when Peter Phillips, I remember specifically, signed over the rights of Jamaicans in the territory of Jamaica, our sovereign waters, where U.S. law enforcement could come in and pick up people of Jamaican citizenship in their own country, which is a violation of the Constitution, and you're literally committing treason because you signed away the sovereignty of Jamaica to a foreign enterprise or a foreign country. So again, we have to become more sophisticated and know our rights, and so these things don't happen under the color of law. So they go in and they pretend they're making a law to do this, to do that, and violate the Constitution. Because no minister on his own should have the right and power under the Constitution to make any such contract or agreement with any foreign entity or private entity, but he did. Alright, so just wanted you to be aware of that. And it's these kinds of things that erode your right as a citizen of Jamaica, and not even a citizen of Jamaica. Any person that was in Jamaican waters or in Jamaica has the protection of the sovereign state of Jamaica, and no foreign entity, international or other, should have that right. And I support it. Just like in the US, I don't support Chinese or any other government or even the Jamaica government coming into US waters and taking possession of anybody. That's a violation of the sovereignty of the United States, and the United States would not allow it. So here we are having politicians who deliberately sold our rights. And I'm saying deliberately because every politician in there should know your Constitution. And in fact, that should be a prerequisite for them even being allowed in the party to run for election if they don't know the Constitution. They should be so versed on it so that when they go into Parliament and making rules, they can say, oh, this, we have to hold off on this and ask the Jamaican people to make a decision in a referendum. So again, that said, just wanted to point that out, that it's this kind of thing that leads to corruption and abuse, because here was a minister of government, and I think he was at some point the prime minister, signing away our rights, our sovereign rights, you know, and that violates every principle of being an independent sovereign nation. All right, so I'm going to go to 5. I think Alexis Robinson knew that Anthony Thorpe had permits to develop the property subject of their claim, and therefore could not be in trespassing on the property. Remember, the latest claim of that they filed and applied for an injunction was that I was trespassing on the property, and the permit I just showed you was from NEPA, and it says from Friday, December 12th, 2008. So when Alexis Robinson filed that I was trespassing on property and applied for an injunction in 2022, which went in front of I don't remember which judge it was now, but in fact it went in front of, did it go in front of Justice Mason, I think, as well? But in any case, 2012 and in 2022 they're applying for orders and getting those orders that I was trespassing on my own property, that I had permits to develop from 2008 and was in possession of the property from 2005. And the judge ignored all of this. That was in court, filed in court, ignored all of that. Here are the stamps from the court, the seal, and the document filed in court, and the judge ignored it and gave an injunction to stop me from using my own property. And as the Constitution says, Chapter 3, Section 15, no property of any description, which I read earlier. So when they did that, the judge violated the Constitution. Here were advertisements for our projects. We were actually advertising projects and development. And as I said, these are on the document that was in front of the court that the judge would have had access to if she was interested in performing her duties as an adjudicator with objectivity. Instead, this was highly prejudicial. And this, as I said, I just show one promotional ad that we have of the complex that was supposed to be at Queens Drive. Here are other promotional documents that were out there from 2008, 2009, 2010. And I'm doing all of this because I said I want you to be very confident. Here were our leasing rates, which we had started to register tenants for the space. All right. So no judge who was objectively looking to rule on this matter could ever make a mistake that we were trespassing on our property, and therefore the deliberate action shows a prejudice. And why was she prejudiced? That's for law enforcement to decide, because again, the Fraudulent Transaction Act, the Law Reform Fraudulent Transaction Act, does address those fraudulent activity, because in so doing the judge ignored the rule and allowed a deceptive application and submissions by Alexis Robinson. And this is a long list. It's a list, and I'm going to go through it. It's a list of 30 points where Alexis Robinson violated the Constitution. So there are 30 counts. All right? And these were in front and are in front of the court, are in front of judges that's ignoring all of this. All right? So I think we're down to Alexis Robinson also knew that both the Jamaica Supreme Court, the Jamaica Appeals Court had ruled and judged that Alexis Robinson's so-called client did not and could not have any rights or interest in the contract or property against which they had filed this claim or their claim. Alexis Robinson knew that all rights and interests in Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. had formally passed to other parties from August 9th to 2017, when she appeared in the Supreme Court alleging that she represented Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. on November 25th, 2018 and January 29th, 2019, and still fraudulently appearing even today. And remember, it was outrageous because the November 25th, 2018 hearing where she appeared claiming she's observing on behalf of Business Ventures, that hearing, the CMC, was established or set specifically for recognizing the parties who had acquired Business Ventures and Solutions rights, all the rights in Business Ventures Solutions property on August 9th and 17th. So again, they acquired it in August 9th, 17th. Justice Henry Mackenzie had set the matter for the 25th of November 2018 for recognition officially. And here, after that date, Alexis Robinson now appeared claiming that she's still representing a company that never retained her because she wasn't authorized. So that's fraud. Alexis Robinson was advised by Anthony Thorpe and Charles Johnson, an attorney, legal representative appointed by order of Justice G. Brown, that Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. did not and could not have retained her or her law firm because they were the legal representative and made no such retainership of her or her law firm. That's Anthony Thorpe and an attorney, Charles Johnson, which we had retained to represent the other parties that were being substituted, told her that we didn't retain her. So at that point, even if somebody had fraudulently told her that she was retained, she would have known at that point that she wasn't. But she knew what she was doing because in November 25th, 18, we also told her and told the court, Justice Kirk Anderson. Alexis Robinson also knew that she was not the rightful appointed attorney for Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. when she filed notice of withdrawal of entitlements to damages on the 28th of January 2019, therefore committing fraud, knowingly doing so, a criminal act. Alexis Robinson knew when she filed notice that she was retained did not know that she was committing fraud. Alexis Robinson knew when she filed notices that she was retained, did so knowing that she was committing fraud. Alexis Robinson knew that the allegation made by her client that Anthony Thorpe owed them $600,000 could not be true because both the Jamaica Supreme Court and Jamaica Appeals Court had already ruled from 2015 and 2012 respectively, and Anthony Thorpe did not and could not owe the Alexander Burnham Trust or Capital One any money whatsoever. Alexis Robinson and John Graham have deliberately violated Part 28 of the CPR by not providing discovery requests made on multiple occasions by the claimant Anthony Thorpe to provide the alleged US $600,000 documentation for the debt they allege is owed by Anthony Thorpe to Capital One and the Alexander Burnham Trust. The basis for the alleged acquisition of Anthony Thorpe claiming 100% right in Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. Of course, we know that Anthony Thorpe did never own 100%, and especially when they made this fraudulent representation, which we did in previous videos, which is also the basis for Alexis Robinson and John Graham false representation that they were retained by Business Ventures and the Alexander Burnham Trust respectively to appear in these proceedings when the rightful and legal owners of Business Ventures did not retain them in any way. 13. Alexis Robinson knew that the claim by her client filed in a U.S. court that Anthony Thorpe owed the Alexander Burnham Trust was fraud. Alexis Robinson knew also that any order gained through such fraudulent representation was in fact also fraudulent and could not be imposed against Anthony Thorpe legally anywhere, more so in Jamaica where the subject property in terms of real estate and damages were domiciled, and plus Jamaica was a sovereign country where no U.S. law or court order was enforceable. Yet Alexis Robinson has been and continued to represent fraud as being the basis for claiming a right in Anthony Thorpe's property, and this is something these judges have also embraced by not striking down anything she put in there. Alexis Robinson therefore knew that when she filed trespassing claims against Anthony Thorpe, she was also committing fraud and public mischief, since Anthony Thorpe by the very Constitution could not be trespassing on his own property. Alexis Robinson filed charges of trespass against Anthony Thorpe with Jamaica Police at Area 1 in Montego Bay for the express purpose of attempting to have the police investigate and harass Anthony Thorpe, an expression of malicious prosecution, defamation of Anthony Thorpe, and public mischief. And I'll Let's see if I find the letter which she sent to them. Okay. Oh, no, not that. A quick second, I'll get to it. Just bear with me, because this also points to malicious prosecution. Okay. Well, okay, when I come across it, I'll present it to you. But yeah, they wrote a letter to the fraud squad that I was trespassing on the property in 2022. Okay, here we go. Please take note of the date which this letter was sent, and it was sent from Myers, Fletcher and Gordon, which also forms part of the conspiracy. It's not just Alexis Robinson, that's the law firm she represents. So this was June 30th, 2023, and of course it's the heading is Myers, Fletcher and Gordon, and a whole lot of listing of the partners and everybody. So it's good that they list everybody on there, because everybody that listed on here is part and parcel of the conspiracy, because they work with the firm. So those persons there, I'd better get their act together and know that Alexis Robinson pulled them into a fraudulent situation where they've committed crime, and she has voluntarily listed them on the document as committing the crime. So in short, the police need to speak to each and every one of them on the document. And as you see, this has been filed in the court's records, and it's supported by affidavits again, which is a criminal act. Re-Civil Appeal COA 2022 CV0016. That's the civil appeal I filed regarding what the judge had done in terms of granting orders to Alexis Robinson in face of all the fraud that was there. Please note that the caption appeal committed on February 7, 2022 by Mr. Thorpe, filing a document titled Notice of Appeal of Court Orders. In that document, he clearly indicates an intention to appeal the judgment of Bertram Linton J. in claim SU 2021 CV013, which is a claim of trespass by Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. against Anthony Thorpe. Anthony Thorpe and Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. are the only parties to the claim below. Appellant Mr. Thorpe wrongly titled the respondent Capital One in a disguise as Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. New York in his Notice of Appeal of Court Orders filed February 7. But again, this is saying that, telling that lie, that they're representing Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. of New York. We already went through that, and clearly there is no such ownership interest, but they did state clearly that they took this out, that I was trespassing. So again, not saying anything that's fictitious. And when I find that other one where they wrote to the police, I'll certainly let you have it as well. Alright, so that said, I think we're down to Alex Rum's charge. File trespassing charges against Anthony Thorpe with the police. I have to find that document for you, the letter. Alexis Robinson also knew that the claim filed by Steve Rapier, remember, told that they're using Steve Rapier, an employee of Capital One, to file that last claim, claiming now he's CEO. So Alexis Robinson also knew that the claim by Steve Rapier, R-A-P-I-E-R, that he was now CEO of Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. was fraudulent, because Alexis Robinson knew that from 2018 that Business Ventures and Solutions was sold in 2017, but she appeared first time in November 2018. That's why we use the 2018 date, not to confuse you that she knew from 2017. Assuming she came after Justice G. Brown's ruling on the 16th May 2018, in November of 2018, that's when we presume she must have known after that point. So in 2018, she was aware of the fraud, because Alexis Robinson knew from 2018 that Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. was already sold and transferred to other parties, because all sales and transfer documents were already certified, authenticated, and filed in the Supreme Court official records when she made representation to the Supreme Court in 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021 that Steve Rapper was the CEO of BVNS Inc. Secondly, just a caveat to this, that end note, if she didn't know when she took the file, when John Graham put her in place, she would have reviewed all the files. That's what an intelligent attorney would do, or a law firm taking over a matter or getting into a matter. They'd review the file so they know exactly where they are on the matter and whether they have a legit stand in going forward in the matter. So she did know, and she went ahead and made pronouncement that Steve Rapper is the CEO of a company that was already sold, transferred, and all the documentation was in the court as contrary to that. It is a fact that Alexis Robinson has collaborated with Steve Rapper of the USA, John Graham, local agent for Capital One NA, and the Alexander Burnham Trust, Capital One NA's Lauren Gallagher, Nicola Della Penna, realtor, and remember Nicola Della Penna is the realtor who was selling the property, attempted to sell the property on advice or direction from Alexis Robinson, to dispossess Anthony Thorpe and other persons having property rights and ownership in the property at 15 Queens Drive, to defraud them of the said property and damages through fraudulent representation by filing multiple lawsuits based on a foundation of fraud, ignoring court orders and judgments from both the Jamaica Supreme Court and the Jamaica Appeals Court for one objective and one objective only, targeting Anthony Thorpe for defrauding him of his lawful property, which represents a conspiracy and fraud, a conspiracy to commit fraud. And remember, I listed a couple of them in there. A number of them are working towards this, and the proof and the evidence has been documented in previous videos, and it's now mentioned here again. And yet a judge would look at all of this that's in front of her and say there wasn't a conspiracy. And we read what a conspiracy is, but I'll also mention it shortly. To date, Alexis Robinson and her co-conspirators have 2 active claims filed in the Supreme Court targeting the claimant, which is me, Anthony Thorpe, in an attempt to defraud Anthony Thorpe and others of real property and debt money instruments owed by Capital One NA and the Alexander Burnham Trust. The fact that Alexis Robinson still alleging that BVNS Inc. or Business Ventures retained her when she knows that BVNS was sold in August of 2017 is proof beyond a shadow of a doubt that she is here again committing fraud after conspiring with John Graham, Lauren Gallagher, and others to defraud Anthony Thorpe and others of property. The legal definition of a conspiracy is, and I'll go on, in a criminal conspiracy, and a criminal conspiracy is a crime. A conspiracy is an agreement between 2 or more persons to commit a crime at some future time in the future. Crime at some time in the future. Criminal law in some countries or for some conspiracies may require that at least one overt act be undertaken in furtherance of that agreement to constitute an offense. Alright, so they did several of them which we just listed, and several of them, more than one person working to commit a crime, and this fits the bill. So again, why would a judge make such an order allowing them to continue in the matter when they're committing a fraud or crime? What are elements of conspiracy? The main elements of a conspiracy are specific intent. They sat down and they made plans with the intention to defraud us of property, with specific intent, defraud us of real estate, defraud us of money damages, and an agreement. And they also attempted or did take action to defame us and defraud our character, especially when you're doing development and in a business. Your character and your individual representation of self to the general public or your potential buyers are extremely important. So when they took all these actions, they were also taking action to destroy us continuing our project, because going out there, people seeing all of this thinking we were criminals or we're doing something wrong would not do business with us. So that was part of the intent as well, which is a crime. And in fact, there's no way a judge or judges, and it's not one judge, it's several of them, allow Alexis Robinson to continue under these circumstances and John Graham. So you tell me what's going on. The same thing we concluded. Corruption. And I don't know why they're doing it. Were they paid? Was it curry favor? Was it because they're friends? Was it because they just believe that they should step on persons' rights because they're representing themselves and not by an attorney? In any case, they're committing a crime. It was fraudulent, it was misrepresentation, and they accepted it. So again, they had to have specific intent, which we showed, an agreement with another person to engage a crime, which both of them listed. John Graham and Alexis Robinson conspired with Steve Rapier, Lorraine Gallagher, and the people at Capital One, indirectly or directly, and they did commit a fraud, committed or attempted to commit fraud, which they did, we said. Alright, and commission of an overt act by one of the co-conspirators or in furtherance of the conspiracy, and is therefore an unlawful agreement, is an element of a criminal conspiracy. So they agreed to commit a crime, which is an unlawful agreement, and they took action in furtherance of the crime when they come into court and claim their own property that belongs to us. They came into court when they made arguments that they are the representative and were appointed or retained by the owners, which are not true, is not true. And the fact that they also tried to sell the property, and not tried to sell, they took agreements and contracts on sale of the property, which again is a crime of fraud. So it fits within the description here of what a conspiracy is. And of course went on. 22, Alexis Robinson. Alright, 22. Claimant gave notice of the January 29, 2019 court hearing on damages on the 28th of January 2019 to John Graham and John Graham only. No notices were sent to Alexis Robinson, and none would have been sent because she has no standing or right to be there, so we wouldn't have sent her any notices. But this is pointing out not only to the conspiracy or furthering the conspiracy to show that she's working with John Graham, because we sent I deliberately waited until the day or the evening before the hearing, the day before the hearing, I think it was somewhere around noonish, and I sent a reminder notice to John Graham because I didn't want us to go to the assessment of damages and he said, oh well, he didn't remember, they didn't show up, and therefore it would have been adjourned or possibly adjourned, which it shouldn't be anyway, because we were there and it was our damages, and it's certainly the judges that's going to make a decision. John Graham can't make a decision, and any argument he would be putting forward would be statements, accounting statements, which if they had, we didn't know about it, they didn't file anything on us. So I waited deliberately until the 28th to inform him so that he wouldn't have that excuse. But instead of just simply coming to the hearing, John Graham went and called Alexis Robinson. Alexis Robinson is not party to the assessment of damages in the claim number 2010 HCV 02692. Remember, she also said, and I pointed out in the last video, that she went and said, oh, a 2010 claim in which Justice G. Brown ruled, it's a different matter, she don't have anything to do with it. But here it is, she's showing up at the assessment of damages on this particular claim, 2010 HCV 02692, Capital One NA versus the successors in the interest of Business Ventures and Solutions Inc., Anthony Thorpe and Jacqueline, the secretary, damaged parties and judgment creditors pursuant to the judgment of the Honorable Mrs. Justice Beswick, entered on the 29th of May 2015 and December 24th. So here again, catch her red-handed in committing a crime, a fraud. Because remember, she said previously in the previous video and previous documentation, oh, the 2020 claim, when I raised the issue that Justice G. Brown had ruled on it and said I'm representing, she said, oh, that ruling only applied to that 2010 claim, and it has nothing to do with the claim she's filing now, and therefore she has nothing to do with the 2010 claim. Here she is in the 2010 claim, claiming she's representing or filing something on behalf of BVNS from the 2010 claim. And so, again, law enforcement can't tell us that they don't have enough evidence. And I'm going through this because I want you to be aware that the tricks they play, they can't play it because I've detailed everything to you. And I want you to be able to be so articulate on the matter that anybody that tries to paint another picture, you already know that what the situation is. Alexis Robinson nonetheless appeared at the assessment of damages after also filing a withdrawal notice for damages allegedly belonging to Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. when Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. had no legal interest in the damages because those interests were already formally sold in August of 2017 to other parties. 4 things are of note here. Only John Graham could have informed Alexis Robinson about the assessment of damages hearing because he was the only party on record for the assessment of damages in claim 2010 HCV 02692, proving that they, both John Graham and Alexis Robinson, were working together towards the same objective of defrauding the claimant, Anthony Thorpe, and others of property in the form of damages. Both were in communication about the damages owed to the claimant and others and conspired and did file a notice of withdrawal of damages, property which did not belong to them, but nonetheless filing documents that Business Ventures and Solutions owned property in the form of damages when it did not, in keeping with the sale and transfer of Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. property to other parties. Both Alexis Robinson and John Graham were in violation of the Law Reform Fraudulent Transaction Act of 2013, committing a crime in furtherance of their preconceived plan to file a withdrawal notice when no such notice were contemplated or authorized by the owners of Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. or the owners of the damages or the owners of real estate. Alexis Robinson knew what she was doing in furtherance of the conspiracy to defraud the claimant because Alexis Robinson and John Graham already knew from May 2016-2018 CMC heard and ruled on by the Honorable Mr. Justice G. Brown that only the claimant Anthony Thorpe was recognized or appointed to represent Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. And I say this, apart from the appointment by Justice G. Brown or the recognition, the rules of the court, Rule 22.4C or 22.41C, doesn't matter, you can look it up, does say because I'm a director and legal director of Business Ventures and Solutions Inc., I have the right to appear on behalf of that. So not only did I have under the law, the rules of the court, but here was the justice also reinforcing that with his May 16, 2018 ruling, which John Graham and Alexis Robinson knew about. Alexis Robinson and John Graham knew that ownership of Business Ventures and Solutions had changed from about August 9 to 17th of 2017, long before the Alexander Burnham Trust allegedly entered any agreement to purchase of the claimant's 100% interest in Business Ventures, the claimant's 100% interest in Business Ventures and Solutions Inc., when in fact and law there was already no interest being held or owned in Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. by the claimant, meaning they knew they were actively committing fraud with common objective of defrauding the claimant and others, which is a conspiracy. Alexis Robinson also conspired with Capital One NA through Capital One NA's employee Lauren Gallagher, alleging that she was instructed by the owners of Business Ventures and Solutions Inc. to file the fraudulent notice when the rightful owners gave no such instructions to anyone. Plus, the rightful owners stood up in a hearing on the 29th of January 2019 in front of Justice B. Morrison and made the definitive declaration and statement that they didn't retain Alexis Robinson, they didn't give any instructions, and they were there for their damages. And why would they be there if they didn't they weren't interested in collecting their damages. But Justice B. Morris, which is listed as one of the co-conspirators, are allowing the co-conspirators to proceed in the matter and denying the claimants the right to go collect their damages, allowed it in spite of that and the facts that were also in front of him. Alright, so a common element or thread between the parties involved in the conspiracy to defraud Anthony Thorpe and others are John Graham, who is directly linked to Capital One NA. He is representing Capital One NA and the Alexander Burnham Trust in the 2010 HCV 02692 claim, which Alexis Robbins claimed, she has nothing to do with, but again appearing. And the Alexander Burnham Trust, Lorraine Gallagher, who together conspired and did file multiple claims aimed at defrauding the claimant Anthony Thorpe of real property and debt money instrument resulting from damages in an undertaking for payment of all damages to the defendants, which they were the defendants, we were the defendants, in claim number 2010 HCV 02692, issued to the Jamaica Supreme Court by Capital One NA, damages that were now in excess of $2 trillion at that time. It's up to as much as 4. Alexis Robinson also conspired with another defendant, Nicola De La Pena, to illegally sell the property to which the claimant, Anthony Thorpe, had in his possession for more than 14 years, and property which Justice D. Brown had ruled and directly stated to John Graham that because of the Limitations Act found in the Jamaica Constitution, Anthony Thorpe could not be dispossessed of the property. Despite knowing that a judge in the Supreme Court had made it known that they had no legal interest in the subject property, Alexis Robinson attempted to sell and did take a sale contract on the property until this claim, as well as the police reports and complaints to the Real Estate Brokers International Corporation official location in the USA, put a stop to the illegal sale. Meaning here was Alexis Robinson again breaking constitutional law and violating the property rights of the claimant and others in furtherance of defrauding the claimant Anthony Thorpe and others of property, a human rights violation under the UN Charter and under the Constitution of Jamaica. Alexis Robinson then also proceeded to file false police reports that Anthony Thorpe was trespassing on the property. The claimant had defaced the property, and that the trespass started after Alexis Robinson's co-conspirator John Graham withdrew an injunction which was placed against the property on the 9th of December 2020. So here she's saying, my trespass only started on when they withdrew the injunction on the 9th of December 2020, which again is a violation of the Law Reform Fraudulent Transaction Act, because she's lying. She knew I was in charge or had the possession of the property since 2005. So here she's putting in December 2020. That's when I first went onto the property and defrauded or started to deface the property. Again, when Alexis Robinson knew fully well that the claimant had been involved with development with the property and in possession of the said property from 2005, already established by the May 16, 2018 ruling of Justice D. Brown, some 2 years before some 2 years before the withdrawal of the injunction, where Justice D. Brown ruled that the claimant could not be dispossessed of the property because of possession from 2005. This means Alexis Robinson knew she was lying when in 2021 she filed complaints with the JCF that the claimant had just started to occupy and trespass on the property in question, in defacing the property, and therefore in defiance of the ruling of the court. This fact is even more significant and daunting when Alexis Robbins filed that her client had a legal interest in the property after both the Appeals Court of Jamaica and the Supreme Court of Jamaica had ruled unanimously that her client had no standing to have filed any claim that they had any interest in any contract of sale of the property or the property itself, or that the claimant, Anthony Thorpe, and the other defendants, which is the other damaged parties, owed any money at all at any time to the Alexander Burnham Trust or any other party, filing false allegations in furtherance of this conspiracy to defraud the claimant et al., which is a crime in itself. So, going through all of that and winding up at this one, I want to wind this up at one, and again, proving the fraud that went on. And I'm just going to again just remind you that there are a whole bunch of owners that she tried to defraud here, and she knew all of this because these persons are not only registered in the court's records, but they were in the documents in front of the judge. And yet the judge made that allegation that I was trespassing and that these people were committing a conspiracy, and went ahead and granted them orders that in effect kept them in the court process rather than getting rid of them. Alright, so again, I want to thank you for being here, taking the time. The mission has not changed, my focus has not changed. As I said, I'm going to do another quick video right now before I leave that explains that this whole matter was not only to defrauders of property, but because when they found out that it couldn't be successful in the matter, they went ahead and took all these actions which were malicious. And malicious prosecution or malicious actions in court proceeding is a violation of the rules, and the court should have dismissed any and everything they did then. Alright, so thank you. You have a great day, and again, looking forward to talking to you. One of the things I wanted to say is that as I said, I listened to a number of persons over the weekend and even before about what was going on in terms of Mr. Bolt, SSL, the Prime Minister and his nefarious activities alleged or proven, and based on the Integrity Commission, it seemed they're factual. But he's not being charged, which is a crime in itself, because you're telling people in Jamaica that the Prime Minister is above the laws of the land. And even if he is guilty, wasn't guilty, let him prove his case in court like everybody else. So they're breaking the Constitution and saying the Prime Minister is above the rules and the laws that everybody else must conform to. Because I'll use myself as example again. Here is Alexis Robbins filing about I'm trespassing on property which I own. I have ownership interest, and yet, and in terms of development, and here it is, a Prime Minister has been docketed with stuff showing there was really some real funny things going on, and the DPP for that particular agency refused to prosecute him on various excuses. Now, apart from him not being prosecuted, the principal, and I didn't hear him, but I heard several persons saying he was now targeting the Integrity Commission, and there was talk about then those persons must resign, or they're intending to resign. It could have just been people talking off the top of their head and emotions, but based on what they were saying, it was suggested or implied. So again, to suggest that those things should occur merely because they took action or made the world know that the Prime Minister was involved in questionable activity is in fact itself in violation of the standards and ethics that we expect of the office of the Prime Minister and of those agencies. And so, party politics should not play here. And so the Prime Minister, by his own hand, should recuse himself from any political involvement with his country's affairs until he deals with it in court. Let his VP take the position. That's what the whole structure of government is about. Because what kind of example you're sending to Jamaica and Jamaicans? What kind of example you're sending to people out there scamming people and robbing people? What kind of example you're sending to persons who rode down that businessman in St. Elizabeth who happened to be of Asian ancestry, running his business, supplying services to the Jamaican people, shot him and took his money? What kind of example you're setting to people who go in and see people's property and steal it? What kind of example? So again, if you have legitimate grounds to stand and go into court, let those people charge you, or you come out voluntarily and provide the documents like I'm doing now, so that Jamaica and persons can recognize the fact that it's fraud and corruption in this country that's killing the economy, killing Jamaicans' ability to progress economically and others, when corruption causes people to try to steal our property and prevent the development of this country. And this is a project that I'll always be signaling and flashing on these videos to remind people the magnitude of the loss. More than $4 trillion over a 16-year period in damages, not only to us but to the Jamaican economy. So people, please consider what's going on seriously and take an active participation in solving it. Because one of the things I think we need to do as a people is to establish, and let me see if I wrote a little bit of notes here. Let me see if I find it. Okay. Yeah. Before let me see if I could do this in 4 minutes. Alright, one of the proposals I like to make, and I had suggested it in previously, was that we should have auditing of judges and attorneys and all of them. In fact, everybody who intends to work in the judicial process, because we need to get clean people in there and stop them from getting in there if they're polluted. Like when they had we had COVID spreading the other day, what did we do? Quarantine people, and we tried to separate them from people who are healthy, and that's what we should do. Separate the corrupt from the people who are not corrupt, and don't put them in there so they can corrupt them and become corruptible, because that's how you have this spread. So I'm not going off the script. The mission is to dismantle corruption and fraud in the judiciary. When that is done, it will be a critical blow to corruption across all agencies, genres, and government platforms. Why? Because the corruptible, which include judges and others, know when attorneys and judges are held to account and held to the highest standards and are sent to prison for extensive periods, they will know that they won't be able to get their way out of crimes they commit by buying or paying off corrupt people in the judiciary. And again, the agents of this process are attorneys who will make deals behind the scenes, and we know they're doing it. So here it's just saying we need to take action to make sure we establish principles and standards that hold these people accountable to become examples to the world that they're committing a crime and they should be held accountable. A practical solution is a judicial oversight and review commission. No association to government. In other words, government has no role in appointing these people. They have no government position, government affiliation. There is no conflict of interest. Strict civilian election of these persons by citizens of Jamaica, and it doesn't have to be in a general election. We set a time for an election and we just go digital on it. Everybody has a phone, and I'm certain we can negotiate or network with the providers of internet service or phone services for people to vote on those selections, and even make revenue off it that would be pumped into this self-replicating, self-governing, independent body to ensure that we provide ourselves with a body that's going to review and audit judges and attorneys and all members or officers of the court before they either get in there and during their tenure there, so that we keep it clean. So again, technology, we have technology at our disposal. We can vote just like when you vote on shows and entertainment things. We can do the same thing and have Jamaicans decide these people who we want in there. Have these people put themselves out there, put their resumes out there, and tell the Jamaican people that this is why we want to be on this committee. This is what we believe, and we're going to be doing a good job. And we have that review every 2 years. And it also allows Jamaicans who are living abroad, who have all the right to vote in elections in Jamaica by virtue of the Constitution, also now have the right to vote on this particular committee's appointments of its members, because they can vote from anywhere in the world. So, and it's an easy setup. Okay, so it gives the Jamaicans living abroad the opportunity to participate, and it does give even the residents of Jamaica, even if they're not citizens, the ability to participate. For example, if we have people living here and they're married to a Jamaican citizen, they're raising their kids here and they live here permanently, then I don't see why they shouldn't vote as well. But that's questionable. It will it will review the appointments of judges affecting policy. It will, in short, it will develop policies on how we appoint judges. It will develop policy and systems how we appoint or recognize attorneys before they go to the bar. And even if the bar appoints them, unless they are certified by this oversight committee as being legit and clean, then they won't go through. And we'll have these attorneys pay a fee to investigate them, so that they end up on a registry with this committee or commission, so that when anybody wants to use an attorney, they go to that commission's website and they review and look, and they can find, oh, this attorney has been cleared and certified as being clean and legit. There are no complaints, because on that website we are going to list any complaints, how much complaints, what happened with the complaints, how they were dealt with, were they resolved, and so that people can make an educated decision that I won't use this attorney because he has so many flags against him. Just like you going to a doctor anywhere in the US or elsewhere, you look for the ratings. So we rate these attorneys that are going to go to the bar before, and we rate them during their tenure with the bar. And we have the other thing happening now. We review and assess complaints by citizens, regardless of whether they have a claim or not in the courts, or to be filed in the courts. And the reason for doing that is that people who are out there and know this attorney is committing a fraud crime, and it goes unnoticed by police, deliberately or otherwise, or by other judges, an ordinary citizen seeing it can file a report anonymously, and triggering, as I said, the committee to launch an investigation in those allegations, and bringing that attorney to ask questions and answer questions about why are these allegations out there about you. All right, exact qualifying standards, educational and background of these persons. So if they don't have training in ethics, that in short, what I'm saying, I'm suggesting that we insist that the law schools implement a serious grad course in ethics and morality, crimes, understanding certain concerns or concepts in crime, so that these judges, and the Constitution, so that these judges don't come out being ill-equipped and making rulings that violate the constitutions, which we just pointed out took place by this judge or judges who keep ignoring the constitutional rights of people. So if we insist on these law schools making sure that there's a course that makes these people understand the ethics, the rules, and what will happen if they break these rules, then they don't get certified as or to represent anybody out there, or being listed as clean attorneys on our website or that committee's website. So we're going to establish facilities across the island. 14 parishes or 15, I think. We're contemplating one, or is it done already? I don't know. But if it's 15 parishes, we go ahead and put an office or a building with all the facilities in there that's digital, so people can go in there and quickly access that information. Independently funded. We're going to independently fund it so that government can't say they're going to tax the people more to make this thing happen. Alright, so we independently fund it. As I said, we can collect revenue during election time where people voting can pay a minimal amount, extremely minimal amount to vote on these matters. and then have revenue coming in from attorneys who want to be listed paying a registration fee, persons who want to have a detailed report on these attorneys, printed and all of that, produced, generating fees. And I'm pretty sure we could come up with more creative ways to generate revenue for that purpose. We could also, if necessary, have government reduce spending in certain areas and apply it here. Because if you reduce spending in certain areas, like getting rid of 10 or 5 of those ministers who are just here occupying us, costing us money, and putting that money to operate these facilities across the country, means that it's fighting corruption. It's going to save us money across the board. When other people intend to thief and rip off people's stuff, this committee will prevent that from happening. So we're going to be saving the country, the taxpayers, and all of that money, because a lot of the corruption that takes place costs taxpayers and the country billions of dollars annually. So that said, have a great afternoon. Looking forward to hearing from you. And as I said, I'll get into the other video that talks about why they're taking these actions. It's not just about trying to defraud us, but it's also malicious, because they figure they can't beat us. All right, thank you. Have a good one, and looking forward to hearing from you, making comments. And I say, form committees. Let's get active in fixing our country, not just screaming, not just get frustrated because of what's going on. I hear persons and I hear the pain, and they know who I'm talking. I'm not going to call any names, but we need, I'm going to say, call us. I'll follow you. I'll watch your platform. I'm there. You see me popping up. I make comments sometimes. I ask you to, share the platform of this message or what I'm doing. But I hear and I hear your pain. And I think if we implement and get active in coming up with solutions like these. Now, this is my suggestion. It can be perfected, and it must be perfected. It's not just about me. That's the point I'm trying to make. I don't want to be seen as somebody out there trying to assert my concepts and my thoughts. I think we have a foundation that we can build on. So I'm making suggestions that we can build on. We can start the process by establishing this committee by doing a crowdfunding exercise. So we don't sit around and say, how we're going to come up with the money. We can be creative in how we come up with this money. And I said, I'm in financing, and I'm very good at coming up with ideas. But guess what? There are people out there who are better than me. As I said, we can have all kind of fundraising drives from the people who believe in what we're doing to create the revenue to do this. All right? So whether it's money through questions answered and things digitally through our cell phones, or contests, or all kind of stuff we can put out there to generate revenue and income that's not burdensome on the people, that's voluntarily being done by the people because they believe in this, because we're going to make them believe in it. All right, have a good one. Stay safe. Talk to you later. Bye.